Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer1745 here with my continuing playthrough of Hearts of Iron 3 with Black Ice 8 and Third Reich events installed. We're going to continue here in the year 1938, July. We've done a few more trades to deal with some of our steel problems. And we've recently got the Sudetenland, which did get us this nice industrial center, getting some more both steel and energy coming in to help. Obviously though, we're also using 3 more ICs there. That helps production. Okay, bow ramps. Got that researched out. How are we doing on submarines? Well, we're going to improve submarine engines there, get that going. I have not taken a look at too much. Let's see what we can see here at how these are built versus. So submarine 36. That's from that flotilla. These are also mostly 36. That's great. Look at the actual armor units. We'll do the tank destroyers. And this. War or pre-war actually. Panzer Is. Now, one other thing. Let's do a little photo interpretation. I think that's just a tree. So what these guys are doing here, the flag is they're telling the other tanks what to do. They used semaphore. That's people waving flags to tell the other tanks what to do. That was the standard method before general radio adoption in all tanks. Now if you notice this guy here, he has a white band over his beret. That beret is just a large floppy beret over a sort of crash helmet kind of helmet thing. It wasn't a metal helmet, it would just bang, keep you from banging your head inside of a tank kind of thing. And that cord going down there tells me that he has earphones on. So he would be the one that was getting radio communications at this time. A lot of the Soviets, up until at least the start of the war and going on, things like platoon commanders, tanks, would have a radio receiver. Company commander tanks would have a receiver transmitter set. So the company commander would get orders from higher levels and then would give orders to the platoon commanders of what to do, and the platoon commanders were expected to, in essence, this guy back here looks like he's a little further down in the hole, but pop their upper part of their body out of the tank and then start waving the flag around telling the other tanks in their platoon what to do. But if a platoon commander or a regular tank saw an enemy, whether it was an enemy sitting down there taking a smoke or an enemy tank getting ready to shoot at them, other than sticking himself out of the tank and starting to wave semi-flags around, or I don't know, getting out of his tank and trying to run over the platoon or company commander's tank and knocking on the side of the tank saying, "Anybody home?" There was no way he could give warnings of danger to anybody else. You had to, physically go all the way up to like the company commander for him to pass the warning down. And so if nobody was paying attention to watching you wave your flag around or whatever, now obviously if you stopped and you turned your tank towards the enemy and fired the gun, maybe a bit more so than the machine guns here, fired your gun, they might hear that and go, "What?" and start looking around. But then they're only then still start looking around and you're in the tank. I don't know that particularly the tanks in the 1930s and 40s, you would, if you're, even if you have your hatches open, you would necessarily know what direction and where the tanks that just fired and all this stuff. So you could, there was no up chain communication. There was only down chain, and it only went so far on that such. So that's why when Germany, by the beginning of the Second World War, all tanks had radios. That was a very big technological advance. Now there were command tanks, some, like there was a Panzer I command tank that had the turret removed. And remember, these are two-man tanks. There's literally only two guys in that tank. But they would remove the turret, create a big armored box here, mount a machine gun fixed forward in there. Basically became a three-man tank with it sitting in there. Now they had a bigger, more powerful radio to communicate, both receive and send signals higher up the chain of command at greater distance. But the regular tanks within the platoon company level, generally speaking, their range was good enough to communicate back and forth and do that. Other command tanks, late war, well, and probably early war too, yeah, that were, Panzer IIIs, you'd see a radio antenna superstructure around it, and otherwise more or less the same tank, meaning they had the turret and the gun and all that. They weren't removing the gun for the command tank. They did, and if you want to get into some of the stuff, details of forward observer tanks. Mid-late war, they took a bunch of Panzer IIIs and removed the gun entirely from them, often putting on a faux gun, just an off-center barrel, that is made of piping or something, but nothing inside. Mounted a machine gun sort of in the turret where the main gun used to be. So they opened up the spacing and made it look at long range like a real tank, so it didn't show up as being particularly odd to the enemy, meaning shoot me first. And they were the tanks that were being used as forward observers for, I think, primarily artillery, but maybe they were also dealing with, air-ground control, but I think it was primarily artillery, because also by that time I'm thinking the Germans were losing control of the skies. So it was very much more, this is sort of mid-ish, late-ish war. We're losing control of the skies, but so they were using those as forward observer tanks, not command tanks, to deal with that. And so that they hollowed out by getting rid of the gun, which takes up a lot of space inside the tank, and all the ammo for the gun. They could open it up to better have a map table and figure out where to direct the artillery and that kind of thing. So they would do that. But so this tells me that this is an early tank exercise before they've generally gotten radios in. He, as platoon or company commander, has radio communication. Later on, they didn't even carry the flags, because yes, if the radios were broken, they could get out there and wave their arms around it, because they learned a basic signals. Think if you've ever watched the guy who stands out in front of an airplane and directs the airplane around with a double flashlight kind of thing. It's just sort of simple semaphore. It isn't like naval semaphore that they're spelling out words, move to forest line and dig in or something. No, it was just, third platoon, go right, or whatever, flank right, or simple basic commands. But you don't need flags if it's only an emergency, because you're already screwed. If you're sticking, if it's an emergency and there's bullets flying around, because other tanks have machine guns, and obviously infantry has rifles and machine guns to shoot anybody who's exposing themselves. So if you're getting to the point that you're trying to command your tank like that, you're screwed anyways. No point in carrying flags. But so that's why they relied on radio, and they got the radio going. So that was that's what made German armor so good. It was a combination of things. It wasn't that they had super great guns. It wasn't that they had super great engines. It wasn't that they had super thick armor. It was a combination of elements. And as we've talked about, like researching the three-man turret, it could shoot, move, and communicate well as a unit. And so you weren't necessarily 10 tanks taking on 40 tanks at one time and coming out very victorious, but it was, say, 10 tanks taking on 15 tanks, winning that battle with very few casualties, going to the next battle of these same 10 tanks taking on a different 15 tanks, winning that, and so on, so that, yes, they would often take on greater numbers, but they would do it in essence piecemeal. Maybe just an hour later than the first one. It wasn't necessarily the next day or the next week, but taking it on, and their abilities to coordinate and smash the enemy before they could adequately respond made the tank forces so superior. Britain was developing some of this technology. They were coming along with the radios. They were coming along with the tactics. It took them a while to sort of catch up. Mid-late war, they more or less had. The Americans, since they entered the war sort of late, very quickly caught on to what was needed and basically adopted, if not all the tactical principles that the Germans used, because the Americans had sort of a different tactical mindset. But the basic practices of radios and three-man turrets and all of those elements, they were most assuredly matched or excelled the Germans in different departments, is why they were able to win. The Soviets, they never, to my understanding, never were able to produce enough radios out of their radio factories to fully equip their tanks with radios. They did get more and more into them, more and more radios into the tanks, more and more, two-way sets, but they still had a lot more communication trouble than the Germans did. It never matched it. They were doing even more the overwhelm with numbers situation than meet and beat them on the quality and tactical type elements. Okay, that's it for that. So yes, we want the 1 Panzer Army HQ and 2 Panzer Corps HQs. Those are very good. Will be useful. I was hoping some more people. I know I've just increased my threat and several other things around here by the check, but I was hoping a few more countries would want to jump in and offer to buy some supplies. We'll see if we just offer them. Yeah, I'm still great. we want to build up money again for new radio improvements or new ministry type buildings. Okay, light cruiser crew training. It's good. We are slowly and piece by piece increasing the various doctrines and Commerce defense. Yeah, we want to do this. We need these two. I do want to get these two at some point. Good. Which I'll push us positively into the green on money. And although I've only just moved a few troops that were already on the border up to the new border, you can see that it even more just becomes untenable now. Move into the capital. And you can see here, you know, obviously some of the industries over here. More industries over here and resources. But there was no way they could make Fortress Prague and hold out for any war-winning time scale. You make it a hard fight, most assuredly, but it wasn't going to be a successful at this point. Tactic. For national defense. So when, by that point, you know, the later situation when we take the rest of Czechoslovakia. France, I'm going to decline. When we take the rest of Czechoslovakia, don't judge them too harshly on the giving in by that point. Because they could tell there wasn't an appetite, even if, you know, just if they put up a spirited defense, Britain and France weren't gonna come charging to whether to the rescue or just simply join the war and help ultimately defeat them at that point. Okay, Luftwaffen Commando Ostmark. So basically, we're adding the Luftwaffe command structure. We'll go over that quickly. We have to readjust. So there's our command infrastructure, fairly historically well displayed for Germany at this time. I think this is more just the airfield outside of Greater Berlin, not really in the other province. So much of my understanding. The naval command infrastructure, as you're seeing that. Maintaining there. Sort of a messed up version of the army. These garrison units need to be reorganized. And obviously this is just sort of pertaining to the Eastern Front. This is more what I wanted to show. The SA, current SA infrastructure around, if you will, and the police infrastructure for Germany of a fairly forceful level of policing. The SS infrastructure at this time, as you can see, and this is fairly well accurate. People often see the SS from the 1942 perspective, in which they had lots of stuff going on. There were a few more, and at this time they were concentration camps. Yes, people were brutalized. Yes, people were murdered in them. Not trying to mitigate that or excuse it or lessen it, but they weren't death camps at this point in the sense that they weren't designed, to kill you. They were designed to break you, to re-educate you, and to house you until your death, because you were an unsuitable person, whether politically or racially. Well, racially wasn't really the situation at this point at all. Not that there weren't Jews that weren't put into these camps, and this would be under the SS Totenkopfverband element. There were, but it was more in the sense that they, at this stage in 38, they had to find excuses for putting you in the camps, if you were Jewish. It wasn't rounding the Jews up at this point. So that's just the SS state, the SA state, the Luftwaffe. Yeah, I think that's, yeah. So that shows you the infrastructure of Germany at this time. And this I really like, and obviously the current AIs won't do this really, so I haven't included the SA into the, if you're in for AI Germany. But this shows you that all troops aren't stuck at the borders waiting to go to war, and there's fighting elements that are in the rear. Okay, medium popularity. So we've lost the effects of high popularity. That sort of sucks. Standard der Führer. The thing I object to here is the image that they use. A Tiger 1 tank. Really? That's the image you decided to go with? Wow, there's a lot of events going to pop up here. Well, there is. Where is he? Oh, we haven't. Excellent. Okay, we haven't had it come on the board yet. Is the. They didn't have Tiger 1 tanks in 1938, obviously, so that's sort of what I object to there. So we add that to the SSVT. At this time, all the SS units were under the control of the SS, whether they're the SSVT or Allgemeine SS or Totenkopf. It was later, and only really there may be briefly assigned commands, during the preparations for like the Austrian occupation, but it really wasn't until the Polish campaign that the SSVT and the Leibstandarte was sort of given over to the Wehrmacht for operational control on an ongoing basis. Administratively, in the sense of who gets promoted and pay and all those things, are still under SS control. They weren't going through the army for that, or through other state organs, meaning other government organs, however much you want to say the SS is part of the government versus the party versus whatever, but they always remained under the SS in that sense. So some nice report of how well an SS officer did in combat by an army officer may have been nice to have on your record, and the SS may take that into account on promoting you, very much so. But it wasn't up to the army. No army officer of any level gave an SS person of any rank a field promotion, like, oh well, you're now the company commander, or no. That was all handled through the SS through their organizations. So they're sort of, yes, part of the Wehrmacht, the overall armed forces, but not internally controlled by them. Okay, the SA in Austria. There was a very large SA in Austria at this time, and preceding the annexation of Austria, the Union, however you want to say it, the Anschluss. They were very active in there, and I mean large as in tens of thousands there. And this is a picture from pre-annexation Austria SA. Notice they're not wearing uniforms, but they're uniformly dressed, in the sense that they're not wearing brown shirts, brown shorts, and armbands, etc., etc. To be out there, they're carrying their party flags, and in Austria at that time, they very much were party flags, not national flags. Yes, they're all wearing their Sam Brown, as we would call them, belts, and they're all wearing black ties, and they're wearing various gray and black shorts, and just, which I think every man to this day has a white shirt, so that isn't a uniform thing, it's just we all happen to put on white shirts today thing, so that they are not, because as I said, for a while, the SA was, including, were banned in 1933, they were able to join the Patriotic Front in 1937. Throughout it, Austria, political units were set up and led by the Nazis. This was a legal disguise for the reorganization. They were now able to openly join the rest of the SA now that it's been unified with this event. So that they were functioning in a semi-covert manner at various stages, but this is obviously either before or maybe just as reunification has happened. I don't have a specific date on this photo, but this is not well after, months after the unification. They would have been into their brown SA uniforms by that point, but it shows what they were sort of doing. And many of the SA units had a mountain unit association to the Edelweiss, because there were mountain units there. And so we'll get the SA OOB for Austria. Okay, we saw in an episode or two ago, I forget which, at least exactly how many, where the Germans were paying the Kaiser, the Hohenzollern Kaiser's bills living in Austria. Well, properties in Austria of Archduke Otto of Habsburg, basically the Habsburg Kaiser, if you will, claimant to the Austrian throne, all of his properties were confiscated. And this is not, and I don't know the details, but this is not like Habsburg palaces that were sort of considered the state's property, and so long when he is, if he would have been the Kaiser, he would have lived there. These are, if you will, defined as personal properties as opposed to state government properties. Obviously, over the generations, they earned a lot of money being Kaiser, and so what would be defined as personal properties were confiscated. There was basically, after this, he was living, I believe, in Paris at the time, and that's part of the reason, is that he didn't maintain the title of Archduke Otto and join, like we can find some Hohenzollern quickly. Make sure I haven't signed in yet. Well, here's Charles Edward, Duke of Saxe-Coburg-Gotha. Basically, the Saxe-Coburg-Gotha is the House of Windsor, but and Charles Edward is obviously named after Charles Edward Stuart, or Bonnie Prince Charlie, which they are have a loose relationship, but that's the in essence a member of the British royal family in a more distant meaning. He's not, I don't think, in line for the British throne, but inherited the Saxe-Coburg-Gotha elements of it there as a member of the SA, and forget what Sturmbannführer or whatever his rank was. I don't know how actively he if ever he commanded a unit, opposed to position, and administered it on an ongoing daily basis, but he was a active member of the SA. For the collaborationists, royalists, royalty. Give me infantry command, I forget what I gave him. Save trade. I gave a lot of the SA fairly high friend of them with the city combat capabilities, urban combat, but I also limited their level so that you don't decide to try to use them as some sort of super, a lot of experience city fighters as commanding regular army units. They can gain a little bit more skill points than they start out with, but they won't go very far. Now I'm getting to the bound into tournament. Well, there's Prince Waldeck. Waldeck in the SS. I might have to give him a 3. I'm sure he's active because I thought I saw him. Maybe I signed him to some command. Already, the SA. Yes, that's what I did. But there was a son of the Kaiser, very heavily involved in the SA. I think I may have signed him to command, I guess. But part of, like I said, part of it I really think is because he was not being a happily supporting the new Germany, but also I think it's part of the anti-Habsburg viewpoint that the Nazis had, as we've seen in earlier ones, that they just earlier episodes here, that they wanted to just destroy the idea of Austrian nationalism and Austrian separateness and some of the viewpoint, the international viewpoint of the Habsburgs, and they're wanting to unify Europe. They were very pan-Europeanist. I know Otto, much later in life, was still very much a pan-Europeanist and a member of the European Parliament. And I think he's dead by now. A friend of mine had some little, sent some letters back and forth on something, but not related to this. But because that is how I know that he was very much of a pan-Europeanist and not a wanting to break down national identities into some of that, which to me just cues in very much to the Habsburg mentality, not just to the Austro-Hungarian Empire, but once, those of us who played EU of the various things, Habsburg's holdings here, Habsburg's holdings down in Spain and in Italy, they're very much of a pan-Europeanist, European viewpoint. So that's fits. So they wanted to really disrupt and destroy the Habsburg power base, if you will. Not destroy all the buildings or remove them from history, but as a modern, within this context, political force. So they confiscate, so we gain a bunch of money. Just 50, but there's a bunch of property, but not a huge amount. Okay, Polish-German trade agreement, another event submitted or contributed by George, 1941. Economic agreement and payments of goods signed in Berlin between Poland and the German Reich. This will improve our relations with Poland. Even though there is already a program going on, though it was nothing to scale at this point, particularly to scale and level of activity, that for the Sudetens there was the, talked about it, situations with Danzig, the Danzig corridor, the Germans there. There was that. Obviously the Poles are going to agree, on this province, but and this is part of it. There is a reality that they're neighboring nations that are dealing with each other, and however this much may help Germany, it also helps Poland. So we can do this or not do this. Basically, it's going to cost us money because we're buying goods. We're going to lose. We're giving them goods. We're giving them energy, which is something that normally wasn't such a big deal. But with this new thing, it is a bit. We'll get a lot of rare materials in and a bunch of metal, which they were producing, and we will improve our relations. So we will do that. Okay, Major General student. I had a lot of trouble finding this photo. This was another event contributed by George, 1941, and he contributed the nice paratroopers training. Obviously they're on a training operation, not a military one for it. But there's hundreds of photos of students available on the internet for various download and use things. But because I'm a history nut, or trying to make the photos not be a lie, I had to find one without his Knight's Cross, which he won for the operations in the Low Countries. So, which is in essence to find a pre-war photo of him, is how, I don't know the date of this photo, whether it's 1938 or as this event represents, but it's basically a pre-war photo of him, and that was extremely hard to find without his Knight's Cross. And that, but I did find one. Obviously that's the cuff title for the Fallschirmjäger Regiment #1. Should General Major student be appointed commander of the airborne and air landing troops. Basically, he's going to take over this, and by doing this, we will put in a bunch of supplies into training, which will give us a few days command and control. Yeah, I say we do this because we will increase our training. Another Nacht der Amazonen, another Night of the Amazons. Christian Weber's sort of nighttime um, bacchanalia put on, poster, a couple of photos from the 1938 event. Yes, we will do that because it's just a few supplies. We'll get more dissent if we don't. People want to be entertained. We'll lose a little bit of dissent, gain some property if we do. So yes, we will do that. Okay, Grand Service Cross. This was a cross given both internationally and domestically by Germany. This one is being awarded to Henry Ford here, and in the United States at the time. Henry Ford had the major Ford plant, which we've already discussed, in Cologne. And so he's helping out German industry with the American production techniques. I do believe the German Henry Ford factory was run under Ford's principles. Unlike the rest of German industry, it did not spread out as far as it could have or should have. But he's also a friend of the Nazis because of this book that he wrote. And this is, in my understanding, he wrote it, he just didn't put his name on it. He may have had collaborators on it, but he was very much involved in the writing of it. And this is a photo of a period cover for Germany. Der International Jew. He was a very big anti-Semite, and he wrote this book dealing with, how bad as he saw them, the International Jew, and what they're doing. No, I have not read the book. I don't know the details of what he's claiming in it, but that's his viewpoint. So Germany awarded him this Grand Service Cross, in which I'm taking that to be improving relations a tiny bit, and after we've done a bunch of other things that have disrupted our relations with the U.S., this improves our relations and costs $2 or whatever, $2,000 or whatever it is, for the nice cross and sash, and send the ambassador, because not sure which one of them is, I believe, the German ambassador to the U.S. So this is a pretty prestigious thing. And obviously you see Henry Ford very openly, proudly wearing the Grand Service Cross here. You don't parade around with those in America on a daily basis. So he obviously didn't do that. That's just something that you wouldn't do, even at a fancy dress, high-level type party thing. You wouldn't be putting these things on, at least big sashes and ribbons, maybe some small little metal, but nothing like that. But he's very proud of it. I think later on, once we go to war, no longer promotes that the German government gave him this. Because I will very much want to say, he was not a collaborationist like Quisling or something. He was very much a pro-American, for America type personality. So once there's the war with Germany, he's all in on making defeat the Germans. It's not like, oh, I reluctantly go to war. No, he's all in and going for that. But he was anti-Semitic, and he thought Germany was doing good organizing up their new government, their new state, and probably thought similarly good things about Britain dealing with coal mine strikes and other things like that. Probably saw France with their Popular Front as chaotic and want to stay away from it. So it's not just that I don't really think he's much of a fascist per se. He was an industrialist, and industrialists can cooperate with fascists most assuredly, but he was an industrialist and an anti-Semite. Okay, the Pact of Steel. This is the Why is this happening only now? Don't know. Oh, I know. Oh, yeah. Okay. There's the earlier event that fires. Yeah, but it's been a while. Got to think about this. The earlier event that fires when Mussolini and Hitler meet and do that. This is the event that fires um, once and has to wait after, because I've been making these short episodes and restarting the thing. Hasn't fired sooner, but this is the event that fires after um, Italy joins faction of the Axis. Yeah, that's basically all this is. And Italy joining, they get their some little benefits. Okay, not sure how much I should say about this, because I sort of spot check the episodes that go up, but I know I recorded this. It happened in an earlier event that happened earlier, but I don't know if it's the one that crashed or not. And then I went and replayed it. I don't know. Okay, so boy, I don't really know. Went into it pretty much in great detail. In economies, I think we've already done this. I'm pretty sure that I did talk about. I know I talked about it, but I'm pretty sure it's one of the things that are up there, or will be up there by the time you're seeing this, about how the Germans were able to spend a lot of money on armaments. Building armaments doesn't put goods into the marketplace that allows various people, whether they build the armaments or they dig the coal or they dig the iron ore and they make the steel for the armament, to be able to go out and buy the products, because they're going to ships and they're going to tanks. So there's a lot of this extra money in the economy. If you have this extra money in the economy and you don't have things for them to buy, it creates inflation. So and I'm going with the shorter version of what I gave before, so I hope it's in there. I thought it was pretty brilliant. But how this extra money, you need to claw it back into the system. So instead of, and because they were just building the Volkswagen factory, the KDF car factory, they didn't have the cars to buy or to sell so that people could put a down payment on and get a car and slowly pay it off. This is the opposite. You do the 5-mark plan every week. You buy a savings stamp for 5 marks, and in 4 years of doing that, you'll then get a car. So it's prepaying for the car in stages, sort of a layaway type plan. And the idea is that in 4 years the factory will be well up and running, and there may or may not be a delay in getting you the car from when you complete your book full of stamps. You only have that amount of time to put it in there. And the good thing about this is if for some reason you lost your job or had other unexpected expenses, if you had bought the car on a loan, you need to keep making the payments. Where this way, if you wanted to skip a few weeks, my understanding is that only just delayed, stretched out to 4 years. It didn't mean, oh, you're 3 years into it, you skip 3 weeks, you lose, you got to start over again. No, it just meant it's 2 weeks delayed, or a year's delayed, or whatever. So you could at times skip weeks in this plan if need be for economic reasons. And so this lowers our descent. This is just the German mill operations, a magazine covering various German mills, and part of covering the blood and soil agenda and promoting the industry, so the various things. This is another event I know that fired in one of my episodes, but so like I said, I had to go back and redo stuff, and I don't know that if it happened I know it hasn't. If it hasn't happened now, even though you may have seen it happen, the effects aren't doubling up. It's just happening once. Because I had to, like I say, go back a few days and replay to catch up to where we were, and some of these events had fired. Hoping that we've covered this. So there's a pot, Free City of Danzig. That's just up there on the border of it. Yes. Shoot. Damn it. Somehow I hit the wrong. Okay, whatever. Didn't walk through it. Yeah, so it was. Okay, JP Sauer and Sons. Many of you may know of Sig Sauer, which is the direct continuation of the company. The name is changed because they bought or were bought by, I forget the details of Sig, which is a Swiss company. But they were one of the major pistol manufacturers for light automatic pistols at the time. I don't own a Model H, but I own an earlier model myself from the time period. Decent little pistols, so we can energy, metal, supplies, increase military or not, we're going to go for that. Okay, outdated aircraft for the Luftwaffe. So we can give them to Hungary, which will gain some money. They will get the event. We'll improve our relations by 2, or we will get it. I'm going to go for it, because we need aircraft. We're going to use aircraft. Okay, reorganize the Austrian police. Yes, we're going to do this. This is from Revolver Held's mod. This is going to help us control our new territories in Austria. Okay, this is new to me. Oh, okay. Craig Schul, Werner Neustadt. All the Wehrmacht officers in World War passed through at Craig Schul. During their training, the Wehrmacht had 5 Craig Schulen, Potsdam, Dresden, Munich, Hanover, and after Anschluss, Werner Neustadt. So what is that? Vienna New State, whatever. Okay, officers candidates known as. Okay, so yes, we want to do that. We decide not to, but use a little manpower. See, now this is a brief little talk. There's somebody who was saying, oh, well, can't you just add all these mods together and just have one big mod? Or maybe just stick it all into Black Ice. Well, it comes down to viewpoint and what we have our names on. This is a perfectly fine, perfectly good image. He's done a good job here, so that I'm perfectly happy with. What I'm not happy with is the money cost, because it's a domestic cost. Yeah, it's in Austria, but only after Austria is unified. So the supplies, totally on board with that. The manpower for the staff, totally on board with that. Everything else on board for that. $250 or money or whatever you want to call them, I'm not on board for that. So that's it. He gets to make his mod his way, and he's not wrong. It's just not how I would do it. There's a difference between right and wrong, you know, not good and bad, but correct and incorrect, and the way I would do it. I would not do the money cost. He's made a judgment, so that's why we don't totally agree upon these things. We each make our own versions the way we see them. And like I say, not wrong to do it, just his version. Okay, barbed wire security is because we have level 1 security installation. Alright, well, we've gone on long enough with this episode. We're going to end this here. Thank you so much for viewing it. Again, please like the episodes. I want to hear your comments. Tell me what I've gotten wrong. Or if you have other questions about things, please let me know. Thanks so much.